Hi everybody and welcome to the Toronto Real Estate Show with Jenelle and Leslie. I'm Jenelle Cameron.
Hi there, I'm Leslie Pearson.
And today we are going to talk about the pros and cons of living in the GTA. Hey everybody, hope you are doing well and welcome back. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk a little bit today about the pros and cons of living in the GTA, which I think is interesting and seems relevant these days because we've got a lot of people moving in and a lot of people moving out.
Right.
Yeah. What's going on with you? How's your week been? We're readjusting. If you're listening to this, you should
hear some moving.
trying to sort ourselves out.
We're in the thick of the fall market, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of listings out is what I see. Some sales and some surprises, some price changing, and in my personal anecdotal experiences, buyers backing out. That's what I see, but I know it's not what you see.
Well, I did see that until this week, and then all of a sudden things seemed very busy to me. So all of a sudden, on some of our listings where we had not had any showings, we're getting showings. I'll tell that story about the house we sold last night because I think that's interesting. But it was really busy, had 85 showings and
that many? I didn't know it was that many.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Incredible. 9 offers. But also there's just a little bit more activity going on from what I can see. So that's interesting as well. So I think all of a sudden in a week things have completely changed. I'm seeing reports about things selling for over asking and bidding wars, et cetera, et cetera. So it makes me think that we'll have another little blip like we did in March, and maybe it won't last that long, but I think there's something happening. You get that sense, I think when we've done this as long as we have, I always get that, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's like a sense or a vibe that things are changing, and then it just kind of builds and happens.
Yeah, so we're here at the end of September, and I think that the next interest rate announcement is in early October.
I believe, yeah.
So if it's kind of ramping up or busy now, you would think that would just further the momentum.
Yeah.
Because we anticipate a further reduction, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And I think again in December is what they're saying, maybe November as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, also I'll talk about that place last night because I thought that was kind of a good barometer for what's happening. So we had this little place in Oshawa which was inexpensive. It was listed for $499. New first timers type of a property. Definitely needs some work. Very original condition. Cute. But
well maintained.
Certainly
livable.
Definitely.
And you could tell there was pride of ownership there, but where is a house listed for $499?
Right. So I listed it for $499 thinking that it would sell for, I was thinking mid-5s is kind of what I said. And let's just try this strategy because I feel like, I just had a feeling that it would be busy. Anyway, 85 showings.
Well, $499.
$499.
You're going to get 85 showings.
Yeah. But I'm not sure I would have 3 months ago.
Yeah.
When nothing was happening. Maybe I'd be lucky to get 8. And 9 offers. So there was a sense, I would say, of desperation with buyers and their agents that I was speaking to.
What were they desperate about?
Wanting to get into the market. So, this might be an Oshawa thing, I don't know. So if you are living in Durham and you're thinking of selling, you probably might want to do it. But every agent I talked to was like, my buyers really want to get in the market and they're desperate, they're concerned they won't be able to afford anything. So they seem to be getting it, which I thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a few things happened with this situation that I always find shocking. So I'm going to throw this out there for any of you who might be in the same situation. Number one, I had 9 offers and 6 of them were good. 3 of them were ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. A waste of time.
Total waste of time. Why are you doing that?
And so that's just
under asking when you know there are lots of offers. Now, either your agent has no read on, and these people, like one of these agents, okay, first of all, I provided a home inspection.
Mm-hmm.
This agent offers the lowest of all offers, puts in a condition on home inspection, as well as a condition of financing and a condition on insurance.
Oh.
Puts all three of these conditions in with the worst offer, and then with the I asked for a short close. He put end of December.
Yeah.
Then calls me like immediately, basically like, did we win? Did we win? And
Really?
I was like, yes. I was like, and I said, you have the lowest offer, like by a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do we? I'm like, yeah. Oh.
And all those conditions.
And all those conditions. Oh. Okay then. Well, my clients really want to get it, you know, and it was listed at $499.
Mm-hmm.
He they offered under asking. He says, would the list price do it? I was like, leave, go away. It was just so uninformed, and it really pissed me off because for the client, for his buyers, like not for my own purposes, but I'm just thinking like, this was not them. Like this was him.
That's what I was wondering.
You can tell when it's them because then they usually come to us and say, like, I'm sorry, I know this offer sucks, but my client's
No, but he thought it was good.
Oh, he thought it was good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just mind boggled by this. So, you know, there's a lot of inexperience in the market for realtors for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But then today, the amount of calls I've had from people who first of all tried to book showings today, and didn't even ask whether it had sold or not, but trying to book showings, and then calling me. So eventually I turned off showings so they can't book them. Then calling me, well, why can't I book? It's like, so they have never read the instructions.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of people who did not know I had provided that, even though I said 2 times in the listing that there's a home inspection, they don't know that there's a home inspection. So I kept sending out mass emails to everybody saying, I have a home inspection. If you would like one, ask me for a copy, I'll send it. And then inevitably I'd get 10 emails. Oh, okay, I'll take the home inspection. They're not even reading the listing. So buyers out there, there is a very minimum standard you should be asking from your agent. And that is that they read the listing, understand the details of the listing. And I think that you should be taking a good long look at the listing too, because it doesn't seem like everybody's paying attention who should be paying attention. So unfortunately, it might be your job to do so as well.
Yeah, you as a buyer, you mean.
Yeah.
Well, that's depressing.
Disappointing.
Yeah. Well, you talk about you heard a sense of desperation amongst buyers to do with that listing. I would say that this week, one experience I've had is a sense of desperation in listing agents.
Yeah.
I've had so many calls from listing agents of properties I've gone to see, like essentially begging me to offer anything at all.
Yeah.
Put it in writing.
Yeah.
You know, and in one case I said, we'd be a good 200 under what you're asking. Just put it in writing.
Yeah.
Like desperate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the weird thing that we're dealing with right now is you've got one side and the other. And we have other listings right now, condo listings that are slow.
Yeah, and so I think that you would feel that a client reacts to something on paper different than just a conversation. So I would say to people, just put it in writing, we'll see what we can do. But you wouldn't call them with this desperation I was hearing.
No, no, you would not.
No. And I was hearing from like 3 or 4 this past week. I found that depressing as well. It
is depressing. It's a really weird time, and I think a lot of it comes down to us as agents setting expectations for our sellers, which I don't think a lot of people are doing. And I think that all sellers have to be very clear right now, no matter what you're selling, unless it's a $499 bungalow in Oshawa, that things could take a long time.
Yeah.
And if you have a condo, you got to be prepared. And I don't even think, like I think I mentioned this before, but I have one condo listing right now, and I said to the client, like, it's going to be slow. And he said, that's okay. I feel like it's better to be on the market than not.
Yeah.
It's going to be slow anyway. And I thought that's a good attitude, and it only takes one. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. I think as long as the seller's okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, you have to know that the days of condo selling in, you know, a week or two are probably gone for the moment, maybe a long time.
Yeah.
But they all will sell at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and even again, like I do even on the condo listings we have right now, we've had all of a sudden showings where we didn't have any for a month. So things have improved, there's no question, like in the last few days.
Good. Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of living in Toronto. So this is really, or in the GTA, this is really, I think, for people who are planning to move here. And we have some people in our lives and clients and such that, you know, want to move here or move back here. And I think things have changed here in the city and in the GTA. So I think it's good to kind of just go over some of these things that we consider to be the pros and cons of living in the GTA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's start with the pros.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say the job market is probably the most important number one consideration that, you know, especially in the city. I find that a lot of my friends who have corporate jobs are required to go back now more than once or twice a week. So there's a number of people who I know that are being mandated to go back 5 times a week.
Yeah.
So being in the GTA or being in the city when I think a lot of people had moved out, obviously that's a problem if you're going to be forced to get back to the office.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I think that things are gradually changing, and I agree with you. More and more people are being asked to go back in more frequently than they were during COVID. And clearly, I mean, Canada is a physically, geographically huge country, but in terms of, you know, industry and business and finance and activity, you know, there are only a few hubs. And the GTA is the biggest, and so really, if you're looking to make it in Canada, it's in the GTA.
It is.
So that's just unavoidable.
And I think we're really looking at Mississauga seems to be where a lot of corporate offices are, and Toronto itself, and maybe some in Markham.
Yeah.
But those are kind of your major centers. So, you know, I meet a lot of people who are moving to Toronto. Or in and around Toronto because they have to work in Mississauga.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they don't know where to go. So that's a question I get all the time. Where should I go if I want to?
Yeah. Well, even I did an open house at this little bungalow in Oshawa on the weekend, and there were several people who are moving from, you know, quite some distances to be in the GTA, from Huntsville, from Peterborough. Because they are working, and they're not necessarily working in Oshawa, but they're working somewhere in the GTA and need to be closer than they are. There were several people like that.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many of those people had moved out during COVID? Could you get the
idea? I
idea?
believe that everybody I talked to had moved out.
Right, during COVID and now had to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, we kind of all saw that coming, but no one really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have and just anecdotally, I have a friend who works at a big company, and they were all told that work was going remote and it was going to be permanently remote. So people made big life changes based on that direction.
Yeah.
Well, the company has shifted, and now they're requiring people to be in the office, maybe not full time, but certainly several times a week. And those people had sold their houses.
Yeah.
And so now. And this friend's company, they're all scrambling, not knowing what to do, and you know, they're either going to have to buy again here or rent and move in, or I think in fact some of them are thinking of leaving the company over this. But anyway,
that's rough.
That's a whole other conversation.
It is, but if you're thinking about moving back into the GTA because you have to work in the city, you know, you've really got a lot of options of suburbs or city to go to, because most suburbs you can get GO train access into downtown if that's where you work. Even out to Hamilton now, there's a lot more GO train options available during the day. And Hamilton it's very far to drive. It's not that far in distance, but from a traffic perspective, it can take some time. But having the GO train run more frequently there is pretty easy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's no getting around it. It is the industrial and commercial and financial center of Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
So that's a pro if you are part of that life.
Yeah, exactly. Second pro, I would say, this is a pretty obvious one, but you know, you've got so much culture, so much opportunity to enjoy life and all the things that cities have to offer, Toronto offers.
Yeah.
I think there's a misconception out there with maybe people who aren't familiar with Canada. Speaking with someone recently who was thinking about moving from New York.
Okay.
For work, they had to come here.
Yeah.
And, she was under the impression that Toronto was a very small city and that it wouldn't be as expensive as it is. And I think that, there's a lot of things people don't realize about Toronto, which I think is always interesting when we do these podcasts or something, because people don't recognize, we get a lot of listeners from outside the city, so people don't recognize this is such a big city and it does offer so much.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. It is a really big city, very diverse, so your opportunities for entertainment and sports and shopping and restaurants, I think it's unsurpassed in Canada. But I would say at the same time, it is kind of a small city.
It is a small city at the same time.
I can see someone from New York thinking that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's more than anywhere else.
Yeah.
And it's great in that regard. Like, you don't want to necessarily be the big New York. You want to be a nice big city without being, a behemoth.
Yeah.
But there's so much here to add to your quality of life experience.
Uh-huh.
If you just feel like I went in this morning to a Filipino grocery store and I saw vegetables I've never heard of before.
Right.
Well, in Aurelia, you're not getting that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that add to your life? I think so.
Yeah, if that's your thing.
Yeah, and it's just, I happened to be walking through a parking lot and saw it there, so I went in. And so now I'm going to go online and find recipes. I had to write down what these vegetables were. But there's things like that everywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's such a great opportunity if you want to take advantage of all that stuff. I feel the same about, and it's kind of funny, we've talked about this before, but I feel the same about the theater and restaurants and the culture, if you take advantage of it. But most of us that live here don't take advantage of anything, maybe restaurants, but
yeah, that might be true everywhere, but I find I have my little border and I go to my same restaurants and grocery stores pretty much all the time. My daughter went to a really big high school and I worried about its size, and then I concluded that the size of the school didn't matter because she had her clique or people she knew, which were maybe 60, and it didn't matter that there were 2,000 other kids there.
That's right.
I kind of feel like that about neighborhoods in Toronto.
Yeah.
I don't take full advantage of all the offerings it has, so once in a while I think, why am I living here if I'm not going to? But here you need to, sometimes if you're a recluse, maybe like I've become, you just have to push yourself because it's just a shame to pass up on the things that are here.
It is. It's every once in a while someone will mention, a restaurant or something and it's so popular and I'm like, what is it? Where? Never heard of it. Yeah, you have to keep your eyes and ears open, I think, if you do want to take advantage of that stuff.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, we are a city of neighborhoods and you get to really know your neighborhood.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, to me, that's another huge advantage of the city itself, is I think the best part about Toronto, in my opinion, are the neighborhoods.
Yeah, it's a city of neighborhoods.
I love that.
I'm still talking about grocery shopping, but I like Japanese savory pancake called an okonomi. I like it a lot, so I tried to figure out how to make it. So then I went online and I tried to find a Japanese grocery store to go and buy some of these, pretty specific ingredients that aren't at your local grocery store. Only to find that a 3-minute walk from my house is the best recognized Japanese grocery store in Ontario.
Isn't that funny?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's right on Pape, right around the corner from me. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Now it's my favorite place, and I walk there every week.
It is so funny. I remember when we got back, when we were in Nepal, like we ate nothing but momo. Okay, we ate momo like with like two times a day, fried momo, boiled momo, whatever. And then as soon as I came home, I was like, I
gotta find some momo.
Right, and meanwhile, like I was on Danforth. There's like 3 momo places.
Yeah.
Right?
But you had no idea.
No idea. I was like, oh, I might have driven by like 100 momo places before. I never paid any attention.
Yeah.
Now all I think about is momo.
But it is a city of neighborhoods, and even if you're living in the city, if you want, I feel like Greek, or I want to go, Italian, or I want to go Philippine, like I did this morning.
Yeah.
There are neighborhoods where there's a concentration of virtually anything you want.
Yeah.
There's not to say that there isn't everything in every neighborhood, but there are definitely neighborhoods known for certain things.
Sure, like if you want Greek food, you know where to go.
Yeah. Well, do you know where to go for Philippine?
No.
So it's at Bathurst and Wilson. In
Yeah.
my experience today. Yeah.
Now
The
I know.
smell of barbecue driving along Wilson
Wow.
at 11:30 in the morning. Unbelievable.
Interesting.
Philippine barbecue. Yeah, so there's a Philippine section.
Amazing.
Didn't know it. But yeah, I think our neighborhoods are amazing.
Yeah, I think that's the coolest part.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so another thing I think that's great about living in, and I'm talking about, I was going to say about Toronto, but I think I would also extend this to the GTA, is I love that, I love the diversity of housing, actually, because when we go to other places, or I'm in other areas, I don't know, like LA, let's take, for example,
Mm-hmm.
you see so much of the same. They're bigger or smaller, but it's all the same kind of house.
Mm-hmm.
Not as many condos, not as many high rises. What I find about the GTA in general is just how unique the housing is.
Mm-hmm.
We have so many houses that are in the city
Mm-hmm.
that are 100, 200 years old. And then you go to somewhere like, Mississauga, where they're predominantly built in the 40s and 50s. Or you go somewhere like Oakville, where you're seeing so many houses 60s or 70s. Or I just think that is very cool. And in Toronto itself, there are so many interesting condo buildings, new ones, old ones, so many different things. And I just think that's really kind of cool, because
Mm-hmm.
I do find neighborhoods, but your type of housing does seem to attract certain people.
Yeah.
Some people love bungalows. Well, if you like bungalows, I can tell you where to go.
Yeah.
You like a back split, I know where to send you. You
Yeah.
want a high rise, I know where you can go. There's just these certain communities
Yeah.
for these types of housing.
That's true. So housing type by neighborhood. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's really, really interesting. Like
Mhm.
a lot of people in Toronto, want an older home, but they don't want to live in a semi. Well, you got to be in the West End.
Mm-hmm.
You want to live in a semi. You want something cheaper, you go to the East End.
Mm-hmm.
You want a newer townhome. There's other places to go for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
What else would you say? Schools are considered, I think, pretty decent in the GTA.
Yeah, I mean,
We certainly have a good variety of public and private.
there's a lot of
to choose
school
from.
offerings, I guess. Yeah, and religious as well.
Yeah.
And so I guess I would say there's a lot. I think there's, varied experiences across the board, as you would get anywhere.
Mhm.
There are schools recognized as superstars, I think it's a good quality education, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or we might be struggling with that one.
I just think there's a lot of options.
Yeah, there's a
And
lot of
I will
options.
agree to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think there's a misconception, maybe I'm naive here, but I think there's a misconception about crime in the GTA.
Yeah.
I think maybe, numbers go up and numbers go down.
Yeah.
But based on population, I don't think it is seriously high crime.
I don't know either. I mean,
Yeah.
there's certain communities
Yeah.
that seem to get the brunt of it. Poor Brampton,
Yeah.
you know, but I think as a rule, yeah, no, I think the crime is pretty, like I will say, you and I have lived here our whole lives, like there's nowhere in the city or anywhere else that I would be concerned about
There's
walking
nowhere I
alone
wouldn't
at night.
go. Yeah, no. Yeah, I would go out with my dog anywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have any concern about that.
I mean, I go out to walk my dog and don't lock my door.
Right.
In our old house, we never locked the door unless we going to sleep overnight.
Yeah.
So with additional numbers, with more people, there's going to be more incidents of things, I think. But it gets a bad rap, I believe, badder rap than it deserves.
I agree. I don't have any. I don't feel. We had that rash of subway incidents there a couple years ago, but that came and went. It almost seemed like a blip in time.
Yeah.
And that was. I remember saying to Cade, my son, every time he got on the subway, don't get stabbed.
Yeah.
Like it was a bit weird.
Or set on fire.
Yeah,
or
or anything. Yeah, watch what you're doing.
But you don't hear about that anymore.
But you don't hear about that anymore. It seems to have passed. They moved on to other crimes. Car theft obviously has been a concern, but I think that even seems to be dying down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel the same.
So I think that's a pro.
That is a pro.
For a big, big population area. Probably the numbers are not as high as you would think.
Yeah. Can you imagine what it would be like? I mean, I've never lived like this, but, being fearful to go out at night to walk the dog.
Yeah.
That would be terrible. It's just not something that we've ever had to think about.
Yeah. And I think you as well as me, like I've never had any personal experience, nor has anyone I know with any crime. I remember being a kid and our house was broken into and they didn't take anything and my parents were devastated. They were so embarrassed.
No, I've been broken into a few times.
Have you?
Yeah. And I've been broken into a few times. Yeah, no, I know people that have had my partner, my best friend, both have had their car stolen. My friends had her car stolen twice. Once from the driveway, once from Yorkdale Mall.
Our next door neighbor did have their car stolen. There is that. I think
so that kind of
auto
stuff
theft
I've had.
is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I do have a very good friend whose niece was murdered. And that speaks to maybe a negative or a con of living in Toronto is, I think, the lack of care and the implications of that, of mental health issues in the city.
Yeah, I think that's a whole kettle of fish that we're not addressing right now.
I think there's a lot of mental health issues going on, and a lot of the negatives we're seeing in the city, if we see any, are because we haven't appropriately addressed that, or the drug problem.
Right.
With a few incidents at drug facilitation centers or whatever they're called.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think we've handled those two issues as well in the GTA as we should have.
Yeah.
So my friend's niece was murdered. It was clearly a mental health issue.
Right, and that might be one of the negatives that I think are fair to address is the that sort of not sometimes relating to crime, but a lot of times it's just a problem.
Yeah, I mean you just kind of get accustomed to in certain areas seeing people on the streets.
Yeah.
Seeing people displaying behavior that makes you nervous.
It can be alarming.
Yeah.
And definitely worse than it used to be. So I would say that would be a bit of a negative in the city. But in the GTA itself, I mean, we have places in the GTA where, there's essentially almost no crime at all.
Yeah.
I mean, like places like Burlington and Oakville that are considered to be so safe.
Yeah.
And very little, would happen there other than maybe the odd car theft or something. But, I think there are, if that's a concern for you, you have places that you can go, which is kind of nice.
So what's another con? Another con I might say is whether public or private is transportation.
Well, transportation's a problem.
Construction and its impact on road travel. Just
unbearably
unbearably difficult.
Yeah.
At times, well, most times.
Yeah.
to drive across the city.
Yeah, but it's also, I think, almost as difficult to get around by a transit because it's not as effective as it should be for a city our size.
Yeah.
I think cycling can be difficult.
Yeah.
So you're not going anywhere quickly
Right.
here, and I think you just have to be
You just have
prepared
to
for that.
understand that.
It's, in our job I probably spend half my day on the road.
It's very frustrating.
Yes, it's very frustrating, but at the same time, it just is what it is, and I've learned to live with it. And whatever that means for you, you figure out.
Did you hear the latest today that Ford announced a feasibility study into building a tunnel under the 401 from Burlington to Oshawa? 50 kilometers.
That's the best thing I've ever heard, but I'll be dead by the time
Right,
that's built.
that's what they said. That's what they said.
And then they'll be so far behind,
Yeah.
that should have been done.
It'll be 25 years, and it's so far behind, but wouldn't that be...
Okay, so here's my plan, just I digress for a moment. Why do we not build second levels
Yeah.
of all highways?
Yeah.
Can you imagine it'd be relatively easy to do?
It exists in some parts of the world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Even Vancouver has
Yeah.
raised
Yeah,
areas.
so for some reason they're thinking of going under.
Why would we not do a second? What I would do, okay, I'm just saying, if I was responsible for this, I would have a second level on every single highway, and underneath that would be a monorail.
Yeah.
So you could go anywhere by, road or monorail,
Yeah.
above ground, above.
Yeah, it seems whenever they do any highway construction, they're widening it. Well, you're taking away from the land, take away
No,
from the
I
air.
just don't get it.
Mhm, yeah.
I don't know, I don't understand, it just sometimes these things happen, I think, am I missing something?
Yeah, and even now this one about going underground, it seems so much more cost and work than going
Right.
above. I agree with you.
Would putting a second
Yeah,
level
there was-
on the 401 make more sense?
Yeah, since his announcement this morning, there was conversation about that I tuned out, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Weird.
so it's a hard city to drive around, and so you just have to know that.
Yeah, you just have to know that.
But I think every big city is.
Yeah, yes. But I think even New York has it right. And you know why? I think this is my theory. Every road in New York almost is one way.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing I would change. Because then on these wide roads, now they have they have a bike lane, they have a courier lane, and they have the sidewalk on every single road, and they go one way, and New York's a busy city, but
Yeah.
I always find largely I'm moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just don't get.
Yeah.
They also don't block roads for construction ever. So that would make more sense. If
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Another
things
thing
we can do.
I hear that they're implementing is charging developers for road closure impact costs of extension in time that projects take. Like that Eglinton line. Oh.
Yeah.
My grandkids might enjoy that, but
maybe not.
it was supposed to be done decades ago. I don't know, but
Now they're not even
so
getting
somebody needs to pay for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think they're starting to look into that.
Right. I think
There has to
I
be
think
a-
we're paying for it.
Yeah, but there has to be a penalty for that.
Yeah.
Um,
So the other major con, depending on what side of the fence you're on, for people moving to Toronto, of course, is the cost of housing.
yeah,
Because even though we've had a bit of a shift, whether you're buying or renting, especially, anywhere in the GTA really, I mean, it's a little cheaper in the east, but it's quite expensive compared to a lot of other places around the world.
yeah,
And which has been a great from an investment standpoint, but again, you just have to know that you're going to pay.
mm-hmm.
I mean, the average price of a home in the GTA is 1.1 million
Mm-hmm.
and change, and the average condo price is like 700,000. So it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And rent, I think the average price for a 2-bedroom is like 3,800 or something now. And even that's gone down, but it's expensive. And I think that if you want to live here, you have to pay. There's a lot of obviously controversy about that. People talk about, affordable housing. I don't even know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
that's ridiculous to me. How are you just going to mandate that housing is affordable? I mean, supply and demand is basic economics 101, isn't it? But it is what it is, and I think that is the case for a lot of major cities, right? Like if you want to live in the middle of Hong Kong, you got to pay.
Yeah.
If you want to live in New York, you got to pay. You want to live in LA, you got to pay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why that seems so shocking to people here, but it is what it is.
Yeah. No, it is more expensive than other parts of the country.
Yeah.
And the province even.
Yeah, in the province. But we have some alternatives, you know. You can go to just outside the city. You know, buying a condo right downtown is a lot more expensive than buying a condo in Pickering, for example. And then you can take the GO train in. Like, you have options, right? So I think it's, I think there are options out there.
Yeah, and you have more options than in your smaller centers.
That's right.
So, you know, you wouldn't have that Pickering and public transit option in a smaller town.
Yeah.
You got limited options.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other major cons that you... I'm going to say the weather, but poor GTA can't help that. It just is what it is.
I don't find the weather a negative. What's wrong about the weather?
Weather sucks. Winter stinks.
It's a lot better than other parts of the province.
Yeah.
Like we, because of our proximity to the lake and because of all our concrete, we actually don't have bad winters in my view.
Yeah.
Like you can go like all last winter, I don't know, did I put on my boots?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I think we had, last winter was good. I think we only had one snowstorm.
Yeah, I think.
But remember the year before?
No, I block it, but I don't think the weather's a negative.
Yeah.
I think the problem is, because not even in the city, because of the activity, it doesn't stay on the ground.
Thankfully.
And we have, I believe, fairly decent snow removal. Like even where I'm living on my dad's little residential street, it's plowed quickly.
Yeah, I think unless we get, there have been a couple of instances where we've had mass amounts of snow, and that's nobody's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see the weather as a negative.
Yeah.
It is what it is. We live in Canada.
Yeah, that's
the
a negative
Canadian.
for me. The weather all over unless
I would think, if I were thinking of why the weather is a negative, is the humidity, but not the cold.
Oh yeah.
It's such a humid city.
Cold's terrible, but it is so humid
Oh.
and windy. Actually,
Yeah.
I would say Chicago is a windy city. I feel like Toronto with the winter is so windy.
Yeah, just the last couple of days walking in my father's house, like on the hardwood, it feels like I'm walking in a swamp.
Yeah, it's
It's
funny.
just so
It's like,
humid.
for being this time of year, it hasn't cooled down at all.
Mm-hmm. No.
Another pro about this city in particular, but also the GTA, is having 2 airports.
Yeah.
You know, a city airport and a major airport. That is amazing. And our international airport pretty much takes you anywhere.
Yep.
Which is great. That's a big thing. Like, and I feel like if you're in the GTA, you're never far from the airport.
Yeah.
I like to travel, so when I get on the airport and I'm at the airport and I'm getting off a plane and I'm talking to someone, I'm like, where are you guys from? And they're like, oh, we're from Kitchener, or we're from London or Kingston. I'm like, oh my God, now you have to drive.
Yeah, that's true.
3 hours.
That's true.
So if you're in the GTA, like, you pretty much don't have far to go.
Yeah, that's
when you
true.
arrive from a plane.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of a big deal.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you travel for work, you've got great options here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you live in Etobicoke, you're 5 minutes from either airport, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree. That's a big advantage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there are more
Yeah,
that I'm going to think
running out of
about
time,
in the
probably.
next week and come back at you with some more ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we've got for now.
All right.
All right, good. Well, thanks everyone, and of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. If you have further,
Yeah, what have we left out?
Yeah, what have we left out? What do you think are the pros and cons of living in Toronto? Talk to us. Let us know. Write in, rate and review, please, as well. But also, if you see this on Instagram or TikTok, as opposed to listening to it, drop us a comment and let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. And in the meantime, don't forget to follow us on that note on all our social channels at the Jenelle Cameron Team. And have a good week and happy real estate.
Happy real estate, everyone.